In an all-new Verify this morning, like so many grocery items, we're paying more for eggs lately. And if you prefer higher quality ones like cage-free or free-range, you'll be shelling out a few extra bucks.
What you just heard may sound clear enough. Cage-free is not the same as free-range, and egg prices are still climbing. But it is also at the egg section that shoppers tend to trust faster than almost anywhere else in the store. Just a few words on the front, and many people already feel like they are choosing something more carefully, more cleanly, more responsibly. The problem is those words do not always mean the same thing, and they certainly do not always lead to the actual quality people imagine in their heads. Some cartons are very good at selling a sense of reassurance, but what is inside does not go nearly that far. In this video, I am not going to tell you to be afraid of eggs. I will point out 7 egg brands you should avoid and 4 brands that truly deliver high quality, so the next time you pick up a carton, you know exactly what you are paying for. Number 1, Cal-Maine Foods, starting with the name Cal-Maine Foods. If you have never heard of it, that is not surprising because most of us do not walk into a grocery store looking for Cal-Maine. I think most people are just looking for a carton of eggs that feels good enough for breakfast, something so familiar that you often pick it up and drop it into the cart without thinking. And it is exactly because it feels that familiar that this is worth pausing on for a moment. Eggs are one of those things that keep a kitchen feeling manageable. There are weeks when everything starts to tighten up, you do not want to buy anything complicated, and you fall back on eggs again. They are affordable, simple, easy to cook, easy to rely on. So when behind that egg section there is a name large enough to control about 1/5 of the egg supply in the United States, you can start to see why that initial sense of simplicity no longer feels so simple. The Associated Press has described Cal-Maine as the largest egg producer in the United States, and Reuters reported that the company was among those examined in investigations related to rising egg prices. What you and I see is not a market report. What we see is the same carton of eggs, but the sense of ease each time we buy it feels a little lighter than before. That does not mean a large company is automatically doing something wrong. I do not want to push this into an overreaching conclusion. A large operation can still help stabilize supply during difficult periods. But with something as basic as eggs, I think the bigger the name you come across, the more it makes sense to slow down for a second. So if even eggs, something that seems as simple as it gets, can be shaped this strongly by large players like this, what about the other things in your kitchen? Are the items you buy every week really as simple as they look? Or are there systems behind them that you never actually see? And a slightly more uncomfortable question, do you really have control over what you are eating every day? I am not asking these questions to make you anxious. But if something as basic as eggs can make people stop and think, then maybe it is time to take a closer look at other choices that feel safe on the surface. And the next name on this list is a very clear example of that kind of feeling you think you are in control of your meals. But in reality, a lot of it has already been decided for you behind the scenes. Number 2, egg beaters. Egg beaters speaks directly to a very modern need. You want breakfast to be simpler, cleaner, easier to control. No cracking shells, no staring at the yolk, and reminding yourself how much you should eat. No fumbling in the kitchen when the morning feels rushed. This product is not just selling eggs, it is selling the feeling that everything has already been standardized, so you have less to deal with. And that is where the distance begins to show. When breakfast moves from a whole egg in its shell to a bottle of liquid eggs that has been processed, packaged, adjusted, and standardized, what sits in front of you is no longer a simple food. It is a full process. And the more layers that stand between you and what you eat, the easier it is for the feeling of I am in control to turn into a belief rather than a reality. In 2025, Cargill Kitchen Solutions recalled about 212,268 pounds of liquid egg products, including Egg Beaters Original and Egg Beaters Cage-Free Original, because they may have contained a cleaning solution with sodium hypochlorite. FSIS classified the case as Class 3, meaning the health risk was considered low. And the agency also stated that there were no reports of illness or injury linked to it. Even so, consumers were advised not to use the product and to throw it away or return it. What stays with me here is not whether the recall was severe or minor. The part that makes me pause sits somewhere else. You reach for egg beaters because you believe everything has been made cleaner, simpler, easier to manage. But the moment something like this happens, you realize you have not moved closer to your food at all. You have simply placed more trust in layers of processing behind the scenes. To be fair, this kind of option still has a place. On mornings that feel too rushed, it makes sense why it works. But if what you want is a meal that stays as close to real food as possible with as little distance as possible between you and what you are eating, this is not where I would want to stay for long. And after a product that sells control so smoothly, the next name takes shoppers in a completely different direction. Not convenience, but the feeling that you are choosing a more nutritious egg. Number 3, Eggland's Best Classic. There are cartons that do not make you feel like you are being guided at all. They do something more subtle. They make you believe you are choosing something better for your body. Eggland's Best Classic fits exactly into that space. I think this is the kind of egg that is very easy to pick up without much thought. You see vitamin D, omega-3, vitamin E, and the feeling comes quickly at least. This breakfast is a little better. There is nothing overly flashy, no long farm story. Just a few numbers, and that is enough for people to feel reassured about their choice. Those numbers are not wrong, but they do not tell the whole story. If you look a little closer, you will notice that Eggland's Best does not offer just one type of egg. They have cage-free, organic free-range, and even pasture-raised, which means within their own lineup, Classic is not the highest tier. So when you pick up this carton and feel like you have moved up quite a bit in reality, you have just stepped in a different direction from regular eggs to eggs explained through nutrition. That is not a bad thing. But it also does not mean you have reached the highest level of quality this brand can offer. In practical terms, this is still a reasonable choice for many people, especially for those who want a small upgrade without changing too much of their routine. But if your goal is to find where quality is pushed further in a more meaningful way, this is not the stopping point. Put simply, you are buying an egg that is explained very well, but not necessarily elevated to its highest level. Number 4, Kirkland Organic Pasture Raised. This is the kind of carton you toss into your cart without thinking. And that is exactly why it hurts more when that trust breaks. Kirkland's signature organic pasture-raised 24-count eggs does not need to work hard to impress you by showing off too much. That combination alone is already enough to make a lot of people feel reassured. Kirkland Organic Pasture raised a large 24-count carton. It feels like a decision that has already been made in your head. Not the kind of choice where you stop and ask, should I buy this? But more like, this one is fine, just take it. And in the egg section, that feeling is powerful because people are not just buying breakfast, they are also buying peace of mind for the next few days. So when at the end of 2024, the FDA said that Handsome Brook Farms was recalling Kirkland's signature organic pasture, raised 24-count eggs because of a salmonella risk, and the case was later classified as Class 1. The sense of disappointment did not come from the fact that even a premium brand can end up in a recall. Honestly, anyone who follows food issues for long enough already knows that can happen. The more uncomfortable part sits somewhere else. This is the kind of carton people choose precisely so they do not have to keep thinking. Pick it once, feel reassured once, and move on. So when a name like this slips, what cracks is not just trust in one shipment. It also weakens a very familiar buying reflex. You see a carton that sounds clean enough, solid enough, respectable enough, and you tell yourself, just grab this one and be done with it. After a hit like that, even when you are standing in front of a carton that looks perfectly fine, there is still a small hesitation in your head. Not huge, but real. I am not placing Kirkland here to turn it into a brand you must avoid at all costs. I am placing it here because when a product is bought on the strength of the word reassurance, shoppers have every right to expect more than the ordinary standard. A regular carton of eggs can be forgiven for many things, but a carton chosen as a kind of guarantee is different. It did not fail on quality, it failed on the promise. And after a name that leaves people disappointed at the level of trust, the next one does not work through certainty at all. It works through something much softer, attractive imagery, deep orange yolks, and the feeling that just looking at it already makes it seem better.
Number 5. Happy Egg Free Range.
There are egg cartons that do not need to say much about nutrition, and they do not need to create that buy bigger for peace of mind feeling either. They only need to make you feel like this will taste better. Happy Egg Free Range usually wins in exactly that space. I think you will understand right away if you have ever cracked an egg open and looked at the yolk before thinking about any of the standards behind it. Some cartons win people over almost instantly through something very instinctive. The color looks better, the packaging feels more cheerful, and just looking at it makes breakfast seem a little less industrial. Happy Egg pulls shoppers in through exactly that feeling. It does not force you to learn much, it makes you like it first. For many people, that is already more than enough to make the decision. But to me, that visual appeal should only be the starting point, not the end point. Once you look more closely at Happy Egg's own lineup, the gap begins to show. Their free-range line still sounds good, still offers outdoor access, and still gives people plenty of reason to feel positive about it, but within the same brand, their pasture-raised line clearly sits at a different level with far more space standards for the hens, which means what you are holding is not the highest standard this brand can offer. So the part that makes me pause with Happy Egg Free Range is not that it looks appealing. It is that because it looks so appealing, shoppers are more likely to close the decision too early. They think they have already stepped into the premium tier, when in reality they have only reached the most approachable part of the journey. The gap between this looks really good, and this is actually held to a higher standard, is wider here than people think. If you are judging it purely as an eating experience, I understand why plenty of people still like this line. It has real reasons to be chosen. But if you are looking for the place where standards are more clearly pushed upward, Happy Egg Free Range feels more like a beautiful doorway than the final destination. It is not selling you a huge promise. It is selling you an impression that is just too easy to like. Number 6, Marketside Organic. Marketside Organic Large Cage Free Brown Eggs is the kind of carton that looks very easy to label as good enough. It is not flashy, it is not overdone, but it still gives shoppers the sense that they are no longer standing at the most basic level of choice. Organic, cage-free, brown eggs. Those words together create exactly what many people want in a grocery store, the feeling that they have moved a little closer to the careful side of shopping, while the price still has not drifted too far from reality. That is why, when this name appeared in the August Egg Company recall in June 2025, the feeling it left behind was uncomfortable in a very specific way. According to the FDA, the recalled egg lots were tied to a salmonella risk and Marketside Organic Large Cage. Free brown eggs was included on that list. The CDC later said the outbreak ended with 134 illnesses, 38 hospitalizations, and 1 death. That alone was enough to make the front of the carton, which once sounded so calm and reassuring, suddenly lose all of its lightness. This carton is not chosen because someone wants to buy something special. It is chosen because it sits right in the zone that feels most livable for a lot of people, not cheap, in a careless way, but not yet in the kind of shopping tier that makes you stop and weigh every purchase for too long. To put it more simply, this is the kind of choice for people who are still trying to make the grocery run work, while also wanting to tell themselves they did a little better for breakfast at home. So when something like this happens, the disappointment does not stay contained inside one brand. It reaches into a very familiar thought. Something that sounds more respectable does not always mean something more reassuring. I see Marketside as a fairly sober reminder. Just because the front of the carton is written well does not mean the rest will automatically line up. And with egg cartons that people buy because they feel they have already tried to choose more carefully, that kind of gap is even more likely to make people pause. Here, the first thing being elevated is the feeling. The real guarantee does not rise at the same speed. And after a name that makes people hesitate because they thought they had already chosen more carefully, the final name goes somewhere even colder. One word on a carton cannot do the work of an entire facility behind it. Number 7, black sheep eggs. If you think free range by itself is enough, this is where that idea stops. Black Sheep Egg Company. Free-range eggs can very easily create the feeling that you have already moved far beyond ordinary eggs. The phrase free range always carries a pretty clear impression that hens have more space, their lives are more natural, and because of that, the eggs sound more trustworthy too. For a lot of people, crossing that line already feels like making the right choice. But here the story is not about how the label is written. It is about what was happening behind that label. During an inspection, the FDA found 40 environmental samples at Black Sheep's facility that tested positive for salmonella, including multiple strains. After that, the related egg lots were recalled at a serious level. Details like that do not appear on the carton. Shoppers also have no way to see them while standing in front of the shelf. That is what makes this name feel cold. You trust a word that is simple, familiar, easy to understand, and you think you have already done your part. But the thing that really determines safety sits somewhere else entirely: how a facility is run, controlled, and monitored every single day. When that part breaks down, the word on the front almost stops meaning anything. That does not mean every product labeled free range should be viewed with suspicion. Labels still have value. They help shoppers distinguish between different farming systems. But if you stop there, you are missing the most important part of the whole story. A label cannot run a facility. By this point, what you probably need is not one more warning, but a clearer way forward. Right after this section, I will move into 4 names that are safer and more worth the money choices that make the egg section feel a little less vague. And they do not just sound good on the front, they also give shoppers stronger reasons to feel confident when dropping them into the cart. Number 1, Vital Farms pasture-raised eggs. After all the names we just went through, if you are simply looking for a carton that feels easier to trust when you put it in your cart, Vital Farms pasture-raised eggs is one worth taking a closer look at. What makes this name easier to trust is not that it tells a better story. It is that it is fairly clear about what it is actually selling. According to the company, Vital Farms hens have year-round outdoor access, and each bird gets at least 108 square feet of pasture space. Just being willing to put a specific standard like that out there already creates a big difference. You do not have to imagine what pasture-raised means in this case or how far it really goes. They say it directly, and that kind of clarity is exactly what shoppers need. To me, that is what helps Vital Farms hold on to trust. In the egg section, there are plenty of cartons that sound good on the front, but the more closely you read, the more things start to feel vague. Here, the reason to choose it shows up pretty quickly. The farming standard is expressed in numbers. The hen's living conditions are placed at the center, and the gap between what is printed on the carton and what stands behind it is not too wide. Shoppers do not have to fill in too much with assumptions. Vital Farms also fits people who are not looking for something that sounds premium, but simply want a choice with a clearer foundation for everyday breakfast. It does not win with color or a list of added nutrients. It wins by showing you what is actually supporting that higher price. Of course, no brand should be trusted based on a single line of text. But if I had to keep one name early in the more reassuring part of this list, Vital Farms would stay. Not because it is perfect, but because when you pick it up, you have enough information to understand why it is different. Put simply, Vital Farms does not ask you to rely too much on feeling. It gives you a standard clear enough to trust with reason.
Number 2, Pete and Gerry's organic pasture-raised eggs.
There are egg cartons that make people decide very quickly. Pete and Gerry's organic pasture-raised eggs does not work that way. It leaves almost the opposite feeling. You look a little longer, read a little more, and then realize this is a name that is actually pretty hard to pick apart. That is what I like about Pete and Gerry's. It does not build the whole buying decision on one bright spot. Not just because it says organic, not just because pasture-raised sounds good, and not just because an image of open pasture looks nice enough to soften people up. Here, several things come together in a fairly clean way. The hens get 108 square feet of outdoor space per bird. The feed is USDA, Organic Non-GMO. There are no antibiotics, it carries certified humane, and the eggs come from family farms. When an egg carton can hold a steady line across that many points, it feels different in your hand too. Pete and Gerry's makes me think of the kind of choice that does not need to make a big impression, but is easier to keep coming back to over time. It does not try to grab shoppers with some oversized promise. It does something much simpler. It lets its foundation show clearly enough. And with something as familiar as eggs that matters more than people think. The more familiar the product, the easier it is for shoppers to ignore the foundation behind it. I think this is the kind of carton that fits people who do not need a loud story to feel like something is worth the money. They just want to know whether this carton actually stands up, what the hen's living conditions look like, what direction the feed goes in, whether the basic anchors are really there. Pete and Gerry's feels fairly tight in those areas. It does not push shoppers into a quick burst of excitement. It creates a steadier feeling, the kind where you put it in your cart and feel less need to second guess it. Pete and Gerry's does not win you over, it just makes it hard to find a reason to put it back. Number 3, Happy Egg Pasture Raised. If you have ever looked at Happy Egg and thought the brand felt visually appealing, this is the version where the higher price starts to make more sense. I say that because with Happy Egg, the difference is not really about whether the name feels familiar. It is about which version you are actually holding. Some of their cartons are very easy to like. At first glance, the colors look good. The overall feel is bright. And once you crack the egg open, it even looks more appealing on the plate. But with this version, the reason to spend more should not stop at this looks better. It comes from the fact that the farming conditions are meaningfully elevated. As the brand describes it, the hens here have much more space to move around and forage outdoors. That is where the initial good feeling people have toward Happy Egg starts to feel less thin. Things are no longer standing only on image or impression. There is a clearer foundation behind it. Some brands make people like them right away, but do not carry that feeling very far after that. In this case, at least with this specific line, what stands behind the carton begins to catch up with what is printed on the front. So if someone already likes the way Happy Egg shows up on the shelf, this is the point where that feeling becomes less decorative and more worth paying for. To put it plainly, not every Happy Egg carton is the one I would choose, but if you do want to buy from this brand, this is the kind of carton that makes the decision feel less superficial. It is no longer just about liking how it looks. It starts to give you a more solid reason to keep it in the cart. This is where Happy Egg stops winning you over with appearance alone and starts giving you a real reason to keep it. And behind this name, there is one more choice that closes the list in a different way. Not because it creates a new feeling, but because it makes one simple point very clearly within the same brand. Picking the right line is when the premium tier truly starts to mean something.
Number 4, Eggland's Best Pasture-Raised Eggs.
Eggland's Best Pasture-Raised Eggs is the kind of carton that makes people less distracted by the extras. With Eggland's Best, many shoppers are used to thinking about omega-3 vitamin D and the kinds of things that sound more nutritious. This carton is different. This time, what is worth holding on to is not the nutrition panel. It is the fact that the hens are raised on pasture with certified humane certification natural light, fresh outdoor air, and more living space. Because of that, the feeling of the product changes too. It no longer feels like an egg with a few extra points added to make it sound better. It starts to feel like a choice, supported by more meaningful real-world living conditions. That matters much more than it may sound at first. With a brand like Eggland's, best shoppers can very easily stop at the first layer and feel like that is already enough. They see a familiar name, notice a few easy-to-remember details, and make the decision quickly. But if you are looking for a carton that is genuinely higher in quality, then the thing guiding your choice should not only be what is added to the egg, it should be the living conditions behind the egg, and with this carton, that part finally starts to come into view more clearly. So what matters here is not that Eggland's Best suddenly becomes a completely different brand. It is that they finally give shoppers a stronger reason to stay. Not because the story is told more beautifully, not because the packaging looks more premium, but because this time when you read a little more closely, you see that your money is not only going toward image or nutrition language, it is starting to go toward a farming standard with a more visible shape behind it. Not through a flashy name, but through the kind of choice that feels steady enough that once it is in your cart, you do not feel the need to check again. At this point, what matters most is not the brand itself, it is the way you begin to look at a carton of eggs. So we have now gone through 7 egg brands you may want to avoid, and 4 names that feel more trustworthy to keep on your list. What I hope you take away after this video is not anxiety every time you stand in front of the egg section. What is worth keeping is a clearer, more sober way of looking at it. A familiar brand is not always enough. A carton that sounds very solid on the front does not always tell the whole story. But, on the other hand, there are still choices that give shoppers more concrete reasons to feel at ease. If there is an egg brand you use and genuinely trust, leave it in the comments. I also want to know what product you want me to break down next time. If you like this kind of analysis that is clear, direct, and easy to use in real life, do not forget to subscribe to the channel.